Hi everybody, this is Nelda from Canadian Scrap Sisters. In a previous video I did a flip through of this 3-ring bound junk journal, so you can go see that video to see everything. I'll put a link in the description below. So today I'm going to show you how to make a 3-ring junk journal just like this. So first I'll go through the supplies that you need. This is a fairly simple journal. There's not a lot of things you need. If you have a paper trimmer like this, that's handy to have. If you don't have one of those, just a ruler and some scissors are great too. Then for punching the holes, you can use just a regular hole punch that you'd find at a stationery shop or an office supply store. Or I have the crocodile, and I found that I think it's the 1/8 inch works really well for the size of rings I have. So I'm going to use this today. And you'll need some binder rings. I've got 3 different sizes here. These smaller ones are about 1 inch across. Then I have a medium-sized ring that's about 1.5 inches across. And these larger ones are 2 inches. So these can be found at office supply shops. I think I've seen them at dollar stores. I really like these smaller rings because when I make a 3-ring journal like this, I don't fill it really full. And so this size has been working great for me. And these ones I found came in interesting colors. Then the last thing you'll need is just a piece of paper and a pen to mark your holes for punching. I am using a piece of grid paper, but you don't need grid paper, just any scrap of paper will do. Now I'm going to get into the types of papers I use, and we'll start with the cover. So it is a junk journal, so it is fun to use things you'd otherwise throw away or recycle. So I have a cake mix box here and a pizza box here. They make really nice sturdy covers. Another option is this is a cardboard mailer that I subscribe to Uppercase magazine, and it always comes in one of these mailers, so I have several of them to use, and they're a good weight for a cover. I also have a file folder, which is good for covers, and it's something you can upcycle and doesn't cost a lot. And then this is a hanging file folder. I sometimes like to use these because I like the dark green color of them, and the inside is brown. And I found a package of these at a thrift store recently, so they were very inexpensive. And then for the inside papers, there are so many different papers you can use. I've gathered some different things to show you, but really anything goes. I would say raid your recycle bin to find bits of paper or cardboard. Anything in the house that you don't need anymore, like magazines or old books, those are all good things. I have this flow book for paper lovers that I bought several years ago, and I'm still trying to use it up. I've barely put a dent in it, it seems. I've probably used maybe 10% of it. So this is a good way to use it. It has some pages that are heavier cardstock like this, which would make a nice page in a journal. It also has some thinner pages. These are more like printer weight paper, so those would be nice. It has some lined paper. It's got paper with really pretty patterns on it, and it's just a huge book full of inspiring pages. So I'd like to use some of these up, so I'll probably pick something from that for this journal. Then I have some pieces that I've made, and maybe I made them for a different project and didn't use them all up, so this is a good time to use them. This is a piece of a master board. I was just gluing bits of paper down to, it looks like a magazine page there, so I could cut this down to the size of my journal and use it as a page. I have this envelope that I started to decorate, and I don't remember what I was planning to use it for, but this would be fun in this junk journal. I could fold it in half and punch holes in the side, and then I'd end up with 2 pockets. I would cut this end open so I'd have 2 pockets in my journal. That could be fun. Here's a paper bag that I started to decorate with some strips of scrapbooking paper, so I could use that. That would make a fun page. Here's a page from a journal. This one I just did in a cheap notebook that I got at the dollar store, and the pages were starting to fall apart, so I ended up just taking that journal apart, and it's fun to reuse things like this in a journal. So this I might cut down and include in this journal, or make a pocket out of it. And here's another journal page that I could cut up and use in a junk journal. I like to make jelly prints, and here are a couple that just didn't turn out the way I expected, so those would be fun to use for a bit of color. Here are a couple of pages that when I was making jelly prints, I used these pages to clean off my brayer. So they have some interesting colors, and looks like on this one I was doing some doodling and other marks. Here's a piece of packing paper, so the kind of paper that comes in an Amazon package that I painted on, and I think I used this to cover another journal I made, and this was left over, and that would be fun to use. Here are some underpapers. So when I'm working on a messy project, I put some brown paper, or this looks like newsprint, under my on my work surface, so that I can make a mess and not get my desktop dirty. So these two are those underpapers, and then you can see I also doodle on them or get my pens to work, or here's some stamping I was doing. So those add some color to a journal. Here are some little collages I made. I might have been making them for journal cards, and these would be fun. I could either include them as pages in the journal, or I could put them into pockets in the journal. And here's some envelopes I made out of an old calendar, and those would be fun to put in. There's this one and this one. They're different shapes, so they're fun to punch holes in and include in the 3-ring binder. And here's some bits of cardstock that were left over from other projects. Those are fun. Here's a piece of scrapbook paper left over. And then we come to a bunch of book pages. So any of these would work. These are from a gardening book that I really like because of the format. It's a horizontal landscape format. And that works really well with journals because when you fold them, the writing is the right way. And then I have more book pages. These are in some different languages. This one's really old and has nice patina on it. This is from a bird book. This is from a kid's math book. And here are some postcards that are fun to use. I think this came out of a magazine. And again, from my Uppercase magazine subscription, these cards are included in each issue. And on one side there's a nice design, and on the other side is information about the magazine. So those are fun. This is the front of a greeting card. That would be nice. And here's a card my sister sent me. I really like the peacock picture. This is a giant playing card. Here's a plastic sleeve. And it's fun to include things like this because they're easy to punch holes in, and then you can use them as a pocket, and whatever you put in it, you can see on both sides. Here is a flashcard, and this is another foreign language. I think it's a flashcard as well. Here are some printables. So these are digital downloads that I either got for free online, or I know I purchased this one, and these are leftovers, and so they're nice pages to use too. Here's another book page from a typing book. And here's some pages from, this was an old computer manual. I like the font on this, and the pages are getting a bit yellow, and there's some of my dad's handwriting, so that's also a nice touch. This came from an electrical textbook. And I like how the text looks like someone's printing. So that's fun. And then I've got some just plain lined paper that I may or may not include. And then this lined paper as well, which I obviously had done some kind of painting on. I really like to use maps in my junk journals. These are great big maps. I forget where I got them, but I really like using them. I like the colors, and because they're so big, you can cut them to any size you need. Here's a bit of junk mail. It's got an interesting shape with this tooth on one side. Here are some paint chips. And these came from the hardware store. This one's a booklet, but I could cut it apart and use some of these pages in this journal. And the same thing here. This is just a folder that has the different colors of paint in it. Here's some packaging paper. This is fun to use, and it's free, especially if you order a lot from Amazon. And I really like paper bags. Here's a paper bag that I could use in a couple different ways. I could use it this way and punch some holes here and then it opens up. Or I could maybe cut the top off, punch holes in the side, and then it's a top loading pocket. Could also make a little pocket here. Here's a smaller bag from my local pharmacy and one from my hardware store in town. Here are a couple of bags that I purchased. This one came from the dollar store. They often have these in different colors and different designs. This one came from a Japanese store. I really like how thin the paper is. And here's one of these big newsprint bags. They're fun to use. This is just a plain paper bag with handles. I could either cut it apart and use it as pages or somehow find a way to, I could punch holes in this side, maybe cut off the handles, fold it in. There are lots of different ways I could use that. And envelopes, lots of different envelopes. So these are ones that obviously I got probably birthday cards in. There's a little envelope I purchased, and I like how this one opens this way, so it's a bit different. Here are some envelopes that came in the mail, and they're fun because they have the windows, and they often have neat designs inside. And then there's this big one that could be folded in half, and it would make a couple of pockets as well. And we're getting to the end here. Here are some calendar pages. They're fun to fold in different ways or cut down and include in a journal. And of course they have the calendars on the back, and that's sometimes an interesting grid pattern to have in your journal. And of course they're beautiful pictures. And the last thing I have here are some scrapbook papers. So these are papers that are really pretty, but I probably wouldn't use them for anything else. So using them in a junk journal is nice because they're colorful, they have cool designs, but you can also cover them up if you don't really like the designs. So I have some birthday ones here. So lots of things you can do with that. So I'm going to pick some pages for my journal, figure out what cover I'm going to use. I'd recommend starting with about 20 pages, and you can always take things out if you don't like them later, or add more pages in. That's one of the benefits of this 3-ring binding system. So I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So I decided to use that cake mix box for my cover. So I took the box apart and cut off all the flaps, and now I'm left with these 2 pieces of cardboard, which will be my front and back covers. And then I selected my inside pages. I think I have more than 20. I might have 22 pages. And I just tried to make sure that they all will fit inside these covers. So this was one of the brayer roll-off sheets. I folded it in half, and then I cut off a strip at the bottom so it would fit within this cover. And here's that masterboard that I just cut down to fit within the cover. Here's a page from that flow paper book. also cut down, and I folded the excess over to make a little flap. And same with this piece. I just cut it to fit and folded it. Here's a piece of leftover cardstock. I might need to trim a little bit off of this side so it fits within the cover. Here's one of those bird book pages. It's a little tall, so I'll probably have to trim off the top or bottom a bit. This giant playing card fits just right, so I'm just going to leave it as is. This greeting card, I just cut off the back of it and it fits perfectly. This lined paper, I cut a strip off the side and folded the bottom up, and it haven't decided yet, but I might glue the edges and just make it a pocket. Here's that map. So I folded it in half and it fits quite nicely. It might be a bit wide, and I might just put it in to the book this way and perhaps glue the bottom so that I've got a pocket. I selected these two paint chips. Here's a piece of the packing paper that I've cut down, and I think I'll fold that in to make a flap. This bag is a bit tall, so I'll probably cut off the bottom, or I could, cut off the top, or I could fold up the bottom. I'm not sure yet. This bag, I want the strips of paper here to show. So far I've folded the bottom up, and I'll decide if I'm going to cut some of the excess off or fold it in. I'm not sure yet. This envelope, I've just folded it in half, and I think it will go into the book this way so it opens up, and I'll open this end so that I have a pocket here and a pocket here. This bag is quite big, so far I've folded one side up, and I think I might fold it in half so that when it opens there's a pocket at the bottom and perhaps two pockets, one on each side. I'll have to cut a bit off of here and maybe cut this excess piece off as well. Then I've got an envelope, and this envelope I've folded up the bottom, and I might make a pocket here, open this side up and make a pocket in the top. It's got that window, so whatever we put in inside it will show through the window. This was a big envelope that I've cut to the height of my cover, and I think I will fold it this way so that it fits within my cover, and it's quite wide, so I'll probably cut off a piece here and maybe glue that closed so I have a couple of pockets at the top. Here's the calendar page. So I folded this up, and I think I'll fold it in half so that when you open it, it's kind of a folder and you've got two pockets here. And then this is the scrapbook paper that I've cut to the height of my cover, and I'm thinking of doing some sort of maybe a tri-fold where I fold it. Maybe I'll just do it right now. I'll fold this in for a flap, and then I'll fold it in again, and then it will be bound into the book on this side, and when you open it you have two flips out. So the next step is to punch the holes so we can bind our book. So I've cut a piece of my graph paper, grid paper, to the height of my cover and just an inch wide. And the reason I've done this is that I want to make a guide on this paper so that I know where to punch my holes on the cover and on all the inside pages. And I'm going to bind it with 3 rings, so I know that I want the middle ring in the middle, so it makes it quite easy to find the middle by just folding this in half. And I'll grab my pen, and so we know that this line where I just folded is the half point. Then I want my top and bottom rings to be the same distance from the top and the bottom. So to get that, I can fold this paper in half again and just kind of, you can measure or eyeball. I want the top ring about here, so I'm going to fold that paper down. And then I've got a crease at the top for the top ring and at the bottom for the bottom ring. So now I have 3 even spaces for my holes to be punched. So I'm using my crocodile, and I think I said the wrong thing at the beginning of the video. I think I said that I would use the 1/8 inch hole punch on this, but I'm now remembering that it was actually the 3/16 inch hole that worked best. So, and this tool has a little slidey thing here which butts up against the edge of your paper so that you always have the hole the same depth every time. So I'm going to punch holes where I've marked these 3 lines. And I'm just butting the edge of the paper up against that guide and lining the mark up in the middle of the hole and punching. And just to make sure I've got the right size hole, I'm going to open my ring and just make sure it fits nicely in that hole, and it does. So then I'm going to use this as a guide to punch all the holes in my cover and on all the pages. So I'm going to line up my front and back cover here, and you can use some paper clips to hold the guide so that it doesn't shift, but I'm just going to hold it with my fingers and hope for the best. And then I'm going to match up the hole on my tool with the hole in that guide and punch. And I'll do that for all 3 holes. There. So now I've got the holes in my front and back cover. Next, I will punch the holes on all the pages that I've selected. So I'll just do this one, and then I will turn off the camera and come back when they're all done so you don't have to watch the whole boring process. So this page is a bit shorter than my guide. So I'm just going to center it on the page just by eye and then punch the holes. Now I've got the holes punched in the cover and one page. So I'm going to go ahead, punch the holes in all my other pages, and then I'll come back and we'll put the book together. All right, so I have punched the holes in all of my pages, and just a couple of thoughts as I was doing that. On papers that maybe aren't as tall as your cover, if you're concerned that the holes aren't, so in this case the holes, I could get all 3 holes on this piece, so I think it would be fine to just center the template. And another thought I had was that instead of trying to hold the template on the paper when you're punching the holes, you could just mark the holes with pen and then punch them. Then you're not trying to keep the template straight. And then this little paint chip, I won't be able to fit all 3 holes on it, so in that case I just decide I'd like to keep 2 holes on it so that it stays nicely within the book. So I would decide, do I want it closer to the top of the book or closer to the bottom? I think with this one I'll put it closer to the top, so I'll punch the 2 holes at the top here. So I'll just line my template up so that the top 2 holes are on the card, and I'll mark my holes and then I'll punch them. And I'll just punch these ones while I'm at it. There, so now we've got all our pages ready and our front and back covers. So the only thing left to do is put the pages in the book. So I've picked these 3 fuchsia pink rings, and to open them, if you've never had to open them, you just need to twist them a little bit and pull them open because they have this notch that keeps them closed. And I'll put the 3 rings in my back cover. And I'll start adding my pages from the back. So I haven't quite decided on what order my pages would go in. So I'm just going to put them all in, and that's one of the benefits of this type of ring-bound junk journal. You can change the order of the pages at any time, or you could take things out at any time, or put different pages in. So it's really flexible, and you don't need to have it all worked out ahead of time. And I think it's a great way to use up scraps of paper or junk mail, or even memorabilia. You could put photographs in a book like this. You could record memories of a vacation, and include maps, brochures, boarding passes, all kinds of things in this sort of format. This was that large envelope, and I still haven't quite decided what I'm doing with this longer flap, so I'm just going to leave it in for now. So I hope you like this idea. Let me know in the comments if you plan to make one, or if you have ideas for other sorts of things you could include in a book like this, or what you might use a junk journal like this for. It's fun to bounce ideas off of each other and see what other people are thinking of doing. And if this idea interests you, I think I'll continue in another video with decorating the inside of the junk journal. So let me know in the comments if that's something you would like to see. Another fun idea is a theme journal. So the birthday paper just reminded me, if you have a special friend who has a birthday, you could make them a junk journal like this and include all kinds of things that remind you of them, or things you know they like. That sort of personalized gift is really special. So I've got my front cover on. I'm just going to snap the rings closed. And here's our 3-ring junk journal. So again, I hope that you enjoyed that, and this is something that you might like to try. Please like and subscribe, and make sure to comment. I'd love to hear what you think of this. Have a good day. Bye.